On the small road leading into town, there was an old cafe named Memories. The owner was an elderly man named Thomas, who was over 70, with deep eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of joys and sorrows. He didn't speak much, but anyone who stepped into the cafe could feel the warmth emanating from him, as if time slowed down between the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. One day, while the cafe was as quiet as usual, the door swung open, and a middle-aged man stepped in. He wore a thick coat, his eyes contemplative, with a hint of hesitation as he looked around the cafe. Thomas looked up, his gaze frozen for a moment before he lowered his eyes and continued wiping the cup in his hand. The visitor slowly walked up to the counter and spoke in a trembling voice, "Hello. It's been a long time, hasn't it, Thomas?" Thomas didn't respond immediately. He set the cup down, looked directly at the man in front of him, and slowly said, "Mark, is that you?" The man nodded. Mark, the best friend Thomas once had, the man who had betrayed him nearly 40 years ago. 40 years ago, Thomas and Mark were inseparable. They grew up together, sharing dreams and ambitions. Both worked at a small woodworking shop, where they dreamed of one day opening their own store. But then, one day, Thomas discovered that Mark had stolen all the money they had saved over the years and disappeared without a word. That betrayal had left a deep scar on Thomas's heart. He lost everything, not just the money, but also his trust in people. Over the years, he rebuilt his life, opening this small cafe in search of some peace, but the old wound had never truly healed. And now, the man who had shattered his dream was standing before him after all these years of silence. Mark lowered his head, his voice choked with emotion. "Thomas, I know what I did was unforgivable. I have regretted it for all these years. When I left, I thought I would have a better life, but in the end, I lost everything. I have nothing left except the burden of regret every single day." Thomas listened quietly. For the first time in 40 years, he saw that Mark was no longer the ambitious young man he once knew. Now, he was just an old, weary man carrying the weight of unspoken remorse. Mark looked up, his eyes red. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. If I could go back, I would never have done what I did." Outside the window, the first snowflakes of the season fell gently. Thomas gazed out, his heart heavy. He had held on to this resentment for so many years, but had it made his life any better? Or had it only made his heart grow colder? He sighed, then picked up the cup of coffee in front of him and gently pushed it toward Mark. "Drink. The coffee is still the same, bitter, but it will warm you." Mark was stunned. His eyes welled up, and his hands trembled as he accepted the cup. Thomas didn't say he forgave him, but he also didn't turn him away. The bitterness of the past 40 years, perhaps it was time to let it go. After that day, Mark didn't disappear like before. He visited the cafe every day, quietly sitting in his usual corner, sipping his coffee as if trying to make up for the lost years. At first, Thomas kept his distance, but over time, Mark's presence became familiar. They began to talk, first with simple questions, then with old stories from the past. One late afternoon, Mark sighed, his eyes distant. "Have you ever thought about what could have been, Thomas? If I hadn't made that mistake, maybe we would have opened that woodworking shop together like we dreamed." Thomas was silent for a long time, then slowly nodded. "I've thought about it for years. But life never goes the way we expect." Mark gave a sad smile. "That's true. I chased the wrong dream and lost everything. I don't expect to be forgiven, but at least I want to do something to make amends." Thomas looked at him and sighed. "Perhaps the best thing you can do is to live the rest of your life well." That evening, as Mark left, Thomas stood still, watching the silhouette of his old friend disappear into the falling snow. His heart no longer felt as heavy as before. He realized that forgiving wasn't about forgetting everything but about accepting the past as a part of life, allowing himself to be free. Thomas returned to the counter and poured himself a cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the warm space. He took a sip, tasting the bitterness on his tongue before it slowly melted into a subtle sweetness. Just like life, some pains, once accepted, could transform into peace. And that was the true gift of forgiveness.